Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Representing His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, His Highness Sayyid As'ad bin Tariq Al Said chairs the Sultan's delegation in the works of the 26th Ordinary Arab Summit of the Council of the Arab Countries League in Cairo. His Majesty receives more cables of greetings on the occasion of His Majesty return safe and healthy. Citizens in various governorates and wilayas of the Sultanate continue celebrating the auspicious return of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to the dear homeland. And in order to develop National Strategic Plan in Logistics Services 2014, the first inland port inaugurates in the wilaya of Barqa. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. Representing His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, His Highness Sayyid As'ad bin Tariq Al Said, representative of His Majesty the Sultan, shall tomorrow leave the Sultanate for Egypt to chair the Sultan delegation in the works of the 26th Ordinary Arab Summit of the Council of the Arab Countries League. His Highness will be accompanied by a delegation comprising His Excellency Yusuf bin Alawi bin Abdullah, Minister responsible for Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Dr. Abdullah bin Muhammad As-Saidi, Minister of Legal Affairs, His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Saayed Al-Kalbani, Minister of Social Development, His Excellency Ahmed bin Yusuf Al-Harthi, Under Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Diplomatic Affairs, His Excellency Sheikh Khalifa bin Ali Al-Harthi, Sultan's accredited ambassador to Egypt and its permanent envoy to the Arab League, and a number of officials. As the Sultan's celebrations continued on the return of His Majesty the Sultan to the dear homeland, His Majesty received more cables of greetings from leaders of brotherly and friendly countries expressing the delight of His Majesty's return, safe and healthy. They were from His Excellency President Mohammed Abdul Hamid of Bangladesh, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President of the United Arab Emirates, Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai, His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, Heir Apparent Deputy Supreme Commander, First Deputy Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Bahrain, His Highness Sheikh Hamad bin Mohammed Al Sharqi, Member of the UAE Supreme Council and ruler of Fujairah, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Hamad bin Mohammed Al Sharqi, Heir Apparent of Fujairah, His Highness Sheikh Hamad bin Saif Al Sharqi, Deputy Ruler of Fujairah, His Excellency Dr. Nabil Al Arabi, Secretary General of the Arab League, and from heads of diplomatic mission in the Sultanate, representatives of international authorities and organization, senior officials of brotherly and friendly countries. They expressed their utmost greetings and heartfelt wishes for His Majesty and their participation for the Omani people for the joy and happiness on this blessed occasion, praying to Almighty Allah to endow His Majesty with continued health and happiness in Oman and its people, broad progress and prosperity under His Majesty's wise leadership. His Majesty also received cables of greetings on this blessed occasion from Their Highnesses, Excellencies, the Ministers, Advisors, and from Commanders of Sultan Armed Forces and Royal Oman Police, from Honorable Members of the State Council, Their Excellencies, the Members of the Shura Council, Under Secretaries and Omani Ambassadors, Honorable Judges, Their Excellencies, the Governors and Walis, and from Sheikhs, dignitaries and citizens. They all expressed their sincere greetings and best wishes to His Majesty, pledging to proceed under His Majesty's wise leadership with determination and decisiveness to continue achievement on the dear land of Oman and for its people, and to enjoy continued security and prosperity. They requested Allah the Almighty to protect His Majesty and endow him with health, happiness and long life in pride and glory. His Majesty replied, thanking them all, expressing his utmost thanks for their expressions of sincere greetings, best wishes and noble feelings, requesting Allah the Almighty to make them enjoy good health, happiness and long life. Citizens in various governorates and wilayas of the Sultanate continue celebrating the auspicious return of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to the dear homeland. More details in the following report.
On the safe return of His Majesty to the country, overwhelming joy and happiness pervaded throughout the Sultanate. In the wilayas of Muscat, Matrah, Amirat and Bushehr, the citizens expressed their love and loyalty for the beloved leader, thanking Allah the Almighty for granting His Majesty with a good health and well-being. In a procession of allegiance and gratitude, they carried pictures of His Majesty and hoisted flags of the Sultanate, expressing feelings of joy and love. Citizens of the wilayas of Suwayq and Shinas in the governorate of North Al-Batina expressed during a procession their happiness for His Majesty's safe return through poems and various traditional arts shows, while cheering sincere greetings and best wishes to His Majesty, the beloved leader, praying to Almighty to protect His Majesty as a guardian of this country and its people. Meanwhile, in the wilaya of Musina'a, in the governorate of South Al-Batina, citizens took to the streets with the Sultanate's flag hoisting as traditional bands singing arts, praying to Almighty to protect His Majesty and endow him with good health. In the wilaya of Taqa, at the governorate of Dhofar, the citizens organized a loyalty and gratitude procession. During the march, the citizens sang songs of happiness while carrying portraits of His Majesty and the Omani flags. It was accompanied by a number of Omani singing arts. In the governorate of Dakhiliya, the citizens of the wilaya of Izki held a procession of allegiance and gratitude to continue celebrating the safe return of His Majesty the Sultan to the homeland. It witnessed a huge participation from members of the society, including men, women and children, cheering sincere greetings and best wishes to His Majesty the beloved leader. Citizens in the wilaya of As-Sinaina at the governorate of Al-Baraymi held a procession to express their sincere feelings and overwhelming happiness on the safe return of His Majesty the Sultan to the dear homeland. In a procession of loyalty and gratitude in the wilaya of Sur in the governorate of South Sharqiyya, the citizens carried pictures of His Majesty and hoisted flags of the Sultanate, expressing feelings of joy and love for the Omani people and cheering sincere greetings and best wishes to His Majesty the Sultan. Furthermore, happiness and joy covered all parts of the wilaya of Wadi Bani Khalid, and citizens were profoundly delighted for the happy return of His Majesty to this beloved country. Citizens in the wilayas of Dank, Yanqul and Ibri in the governorate of Dhahira organized a procession to rejoice His Majesty's good health. They took to the streets with the Sultanate's flag hoisting as traditional bands singing arts, praying to Almighty to protect His Majesty and endow him with good health and grant him a long life, to achieve aspirations of further progress, growth and prosperity for the Omani people under His Majesty's wise leadership.
أيها المواطنون الأعزاء، إن بناء الدولة العصرية التي تعهدنا بإقامتها منذ اللحظة الأولى لفجر النهضة المباركة قد اقتضى منا بذل جهود كبيرة في مجال إنشاء البنية الأساسية التي هي عماد التنمية الشاملة وركيزتها الأولى، وتوفير هذه البنية في شتى ربوع السلطنة أتاح ولله الحمد فرصة كبرى للتطور العمراني في مختلف المدن والقرى على امتداد الساحة العمانية.
The Secretary General of Arab League, Nabil Al-Arabi, congratulates His Majesty the Sultan and the Omani people on the blessed return of His Majesty to the homeland while valuing His Majesty's attitudes in supporting Arab issues. On the auspicious occasion of His Majesty's return, Honorable Dr. Ahmed Al-Tayyib, Sheikh of the Al-Azhar, also congratulated His Majesty the Sultan. The news of the safe return of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to the dear homeland also echoed among citizens in Egypt, who expressed a sincere greeting and prayed to Almighty Allah to protect His Majesty as the guardian of Oman and its people. Omanis from all walks of life ventured out chanting with national spirit, repeating expressions of loyalty and praying to Allah Almighty to protect Oman and His Majesty the Sultan. These were scenes in Oman that took place over many days after citizens heard the royal address of His Majesty the Sultan, which he delivered from Germany to his people. Here's a report.
Omanis from all walks of life ventured out chanting with national spirit, repeating expressions of loyalty and praying to Allah Almighty to protect Oman and His Majesty the Sultan. These were scenes in Oman that took place over many days after citizens heard the royal address of His Majesty the Sultan, which he delivered from Germany to his people. From villages, countryside and mountains, Omanis lined in processions of loyalty, renewing their allegiance and expressing their gratitude to Allah for assuring on the health of His Majesty. Each person was expressing love and affection for the country and the leader. The royal speech was always drawing new path for Omanis and defining policies for the country. His Majesty the Sultan, from the first day of assuming the rule in the country, forwarded a speech to his people for yesterday to be like today, in yielding happiness for people and for the national solidarity to build up the country, as a message drawn up by the listeners of the royal speeches. In wilayas and governorates, His Majesty made an approach to be among his people, listens to them, and they listen to him in a speech from the heart between the leader and his people directly. His Majesty the Sultan made various and numerous royal speeches in the wilayas of the governorates of the Sultanate, directing and guiding the atmosphere for assessment to upgrade the country for the well-being of people. As His Majesty was close with his royal speeches to his people, as the people were assured by listening to these speeches and the words comes by His Majesty after weather conditions that affected in 2007. Oman citizens and leader are in continuous solidarity. Oman is progressing forward to the glory by the virtue of its people and directives of its leader, whose speeches draw concepts for the future. From them, states' general domestic and foreign policies are derived within the context of laws and decrees applied for public life, as well as public and private institutions are guided by them in their functions.
Our beautiful country has indeed developed in all the areas, from village to towns and governance. Nowadays, many of us are educated and living in a developed country, and this would not happen without the wise leadership of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos. Thanks a lot to His Majesty.
We are very proud of His Majesty in bringing various development in our beloved Oman. The prosperity and the glory is obviously apparent in the way our country has developed over the last 44 years.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement today stating that due to prevailing security situations in Yemen and to care for safety and security of the Sultan's citizens, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs would like to advise Omani citizens, including students at colleges and universities in Yemen, to leave Yemen and to avoid traveling to Yemen in current time in order to preserve their safety and not to expose themselves to any mischief, God forbid. The Royal Camel won His Majesty's Cup at the conclusion race for His Majesty's Cup for Domestic Camel Races 2015. During the conclusion race, a public festival was organized to celebrate the auspicious return of His Majesty the Sultan. The ceremony was presided over by His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Saeed Al Qalbani, Minister of Social Development. Muscat Container Terminal, which is the first approved inland port in the Sultanate, opened in the Wilaya of Barka under the auspices of His Excellency Saeed bin Hamdoun Al Harthi, Under Secretary of the Ministry of Transport and Communications for Ports and Maritime Affairs. The departments included services provided by the public administration for customs with regard in inspecting the retail goods. Muscat Container Terminal provided the retail goods container handling, storing empty containers, offloading container services. It also provided the transportation services for goods of different sizes and provided the electricity service to the chilled containers. Muscat Container Terminal aimed at increasing the inflow of goods and development of business movement and increasing the efficiency of logistics services and supply chains so that they can contribute to supporting the National Logistics Services Strategy 2040. With 100 million Omani Riyals, Oman Power and Water Procurement Companies signed an agreement of establishing Kuryat Independent Water Desalination Plant. The plant production capacity reached 200,000 cubic meters of water daily and supply a number of wilayas in the Governorate of Muscat. The agreement was signed by His Excellency Sheikh Saif bin Mohammed Al-Shabibi, Minister of Housing, His Excellency Mohammed bin Abdullah Al-Mahrouki, Chairman of the Public Authority for Electricity and Water, and Engineer Ahmed bin Saleh Al-Jahdami, Chief Executive Officer of Oman Power and Water Procurement Company. The project considered as the first independent water desalination plant. Within a plan to provide requirements for Sultan's armed forces and security services of ammunitions, the foundation stone was laid today to start structural works for the project of the factory of production of a small arms ammunition factory, which is the first of its kind in the Sultanate. The project will be constructed in the Wilaya of Samail on a total area of more than 60,700 square meters and will include structural works of the main building, a building for ammunitions factory, stores and other facilities. They were signed according to highest technical standards, taking into considerations security, safety, environmental and occupational aspects. The event was organized under the auspices of His Excellency Sayyid Badr bin Saud Al-Busaidi, Minister responsible for Defense Affairs. Stemming from keenness to provide social services and healthcare for handicapped people, military social services at the Staff Command of Sultan's Armed Forces organized the 5th Central Celebration for the Handicapped. The affiliates of the Ministry of Defense, Sultan Armed Forces and Royal Guard of Oman. The event included a number of recreational performances in which handicapped people took part, besides their participation in a procession and an exhibition of their products. The event was presided over by Lieutenant General Ahmed bin Harith Al-Nabhani, Chief of Staff of the Sultan Armed Forces. The care provided by the Ministry of Defense, Sultan Armed Forces and Royal Guard of Oman does not stop at the time of service, but also extended to the retirement time, where social services are provided, such as follow-up of their situation and fulfillment of their various needs. Under the theme Civil Defense and Limit of Hazards of Catastrophes within Sustainable Development, a ceremony was held in the Governorate of South Batna marking Civil Defense World Day. The ceremony included various activities such as reciting poetry and presenting visual shows on the role of civil defense in the society. During the occasion, participants were honored and an accompanying exhibition was opened. It was presided over by His Excellency Sheikh Khalal bin Saeed Al Hajri, Governor of South Batna. urging service and commodity providers to present it to the consumers in accordance with regulations and laws to guarantee their interests for both sides came within the event organized by the Public Authority for Consumer Protection at the Niaba of Khairun Hairoti in the Wilaya of Salalah to mark Consumer Protection World Day. It included awareness lectures under the theme Consumers' Right of Health Food and acquainted consumers of their rights and duties in addition to facing the fake food and to make sure of quality products besides meeting specifications in addition to combating high prices, monopolies and increase of prices of products and services. The Sultanate earned 5 awards in the field of touristic media. This was announced at a press conference for Arab Center for Touristic Media at the Jordanian capital Amman. The awards of the center considered at the biggest awards granted for personnel, institutions, governmental authorities, Arab cities in the field of tourism. His Excellency Ahmed bin Nasser Al-Mahrazi, Minister of Tourism, was chosen as the Touristic Personnel of the Year. Oman News Agency won the award of the Best Arab News Agency, shared with a Saudi news agency, and Rahtat Program won the award of Best Arab Touristic Program. On the sideline of the press conference, an agreement was signed between the Arab Center for Touristic Media and Al Roya newspaper to assign a monthly page to activate tourism.
إن سياستنا الداخلية كما عهدتموها دائما قائمة على العمل البناء لما فيه الصالح العام، مواكبين تطورات العصر مع المحافظة على هويتنا وثوابتنا وقيمنا التي نعتز بها. أما سياستنا الخارجية فأساسها الدعوة إلى السلام والوئام والتعاون الوثيق بين سائر الأمم والالتزام بمبادئ الحق والعدل والإنصاف وعدم التدخل في الشؤون الداخلية للغير وفض المنازعات بالطرق السلمية وبما يحفظ للبشرية جمعاء أمنها واستقرارها ورخاءها وازدهارها.
A 3-day World Health Organization's meeting on promoting preconception care in the East Mediterranean region commenced in Muscat in the presence of His Excellency the Minister of Health and Her Excellency the Director General of WAHU. More details in the following report by Abdullah bin Ahmed Al-Rubai.
Despite the growing evidence that preconception care can increase the well-being of women and children and improve pregnancy outcomes, including mortality and morbidity, there is a gap in the pre-pregnancy period of the continuum of care. In the Eastern Mediterranean region, hereditary diseases and congenital malformation have been reported to affect between 2% and 5% of all live births, to account for up to 30% of pediatric hospital admissions, and in some countries to cause about half of children's deaths. The magnitude of the problem of such disorders in the region can be attributed to a number of factors. These are mainly high rates of consanguineous marriage, young and advanced maternal age at childbearing, ill health of mothers before pregnancy, and lack of public health measures to address these factors.
The objective of this conference is to strengthen preconception care, that is the care of the woman before she goes into her pregnancy, because that's the best way to ensure not only a healthy pregnancy, but a healthy outcome of pregnancy. And preconception care is an area that has been really, I don't think, given the justice and the attention by policymakers and donors that it's been due.
Hence, this meeting is a critical stage for launching preconception care initiative in the region. It will help identifying core preconception care interventions and their indicators that can be discussed with member states in accordance with their needs. The identified interventions should build on successful experiences launched in the region. These interventions need to be relevant, cost-effective, affordable, feasible, and culturally acceptable. This meeting will identify a package of core intervention that strengthen pre-conception care and positively contribute to the health of mothers and children in the East Mediterranean region. For the Sultanate of Oman Television, I'm Abdullah bin Ahmed al-Rubi'i, Radisson Blue Al Khuwair.
Hosted by the Sultanate of Oman, the meeting of the Global Policy Group organized by the World Health Organization concluded its meeting in Muscat. More details in the following report.
Welcome you all in Sultanate.
The Global Policies Group meeting concluded its sessions at Al Bustan Palace Hotel. The three-day meeting hosted by the Sultanate's Ministry of Health, organized by the World Health Organization and participated by Her Excellency Dr. Margaret Chan, WHO Director General, along with her deputy and regional directors of the 6 World Health Organization regions. The meeting discussed issues related to the global health policies, updates in the international health affairs, and medical emergencies techniques. Dr. Margaret Chan, WHO Director General, spoke to us and said, while you are leading the WHO Global Policy Group, how do you look at this group and why it has been conducted here in Muscat?
Well, let me first and foremost take this opportunity to appreciate the generosity and the hospitality of the Ministry of Health in hosting the Global Policy Group of the World Health Organization and having our annual retreat.
On the role of annual retreat, she said,
the annual retreat is very important for the World Health Organization. This is the chance where I myself, together with 6 regional directors and the Deputy Director General, to discuss what are the health priorities for the world and which, of course, affect the work of WHO. And how do we support countries to achieve health for all their people? The important subjects and priority for the world include how do we manage, health. We do need very strong, resilient health systems that have the right doctors and nurses, the right infrastructure, as well as information and commodity to deal with a full range of diseases in an integrated manner based on the need of the people and making sure that every individual in the country have access to quality, affordable, we call it universal health coverage.
Regarding healthcare services in Oman, she also said,
Oman is doing extremely well in this. As a country, your country's investment in health is getting one of the best return on investment. And within a short space of time, in less than 15 years, your country's, drop in under 5 childhood mortality is the fastest and the best performers in the world.
And finally, on the areas discussed, EMRO Director General Dr. Ala Alwan said,
plans for the next biennium, which is 2016 and 2017, concrete recommendations on the way forward in addressing the most important health challenges that are facing the world, particularly in relation to the forthcoming meeting of the World Health Assembly.
This meeting of the Global Policy Group addressing the most health challenges facing the world, with the concrete plans ready to be presented in the forthcoming World Health Assembly. For the Sultanate of Oman Television, I'm Abdullah bin Ahmed al-Rubi'i, Al Bustan Palace Hotel.
Now for the general weather forecast. Clear to partly cloudy skies will prevail over the Sultanate with chances of scattered rain over Hajar Mountains and nearby areas. Winds will be north to northeasterly light to moderate. Seas will be moderate along the western coast of the Governorate of Musandam with a maximum wave height of 2 meters, and it will be slight to moderate along the rest of the coast with a maximum wave height of 1.5 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Representing His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, His Highness Sayyid As'ad bin Tariq Al Saeed chairs the Sultan's delegation in the works of the 26th Ordinary Arab Summit of the Council of the Arab Countries League in Cairo. His Majesty receives more cables of greetings on the occasion of His Majesty return safe and healthy. Citizens in various governorates and wilayas of the Sultanate continue celebrating the auspicious return of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos to the dear homeland. And in order to develop National Strategic Plan in Logistics Services 2040, the first inland port inaugurates in the wilaya of Barka. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the studio and the newsroom, it's good night.